Perfect Turd Podcast, episode 100, Lamar. We're celebrating our 100th episode with a special guest.
Boy, oh boy. The man, the myth, the legend, Charles Band of Full Moon Studios. Sir, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. And I don't know what higher level one can reach than to be the 100th Perfect Turd Podcast guest. That's it.
One day it's going to mean something, and it's going to mean something because you were the 100th person on the Perfect Turd Podcast.
Right.
Thank you. Yes. So you have this new memoir, Confessions of a Puppetmaster, and you're going through basically your life as a filmmaker and general director, producer. What was it like, I guess just cataloging your whole career, everything,
Well, what was weird is it happened for a number of reasons, and the whole career part bums me out because we have 18 movies planned to shoot next year. So we're like out of control. So it's like, when do you there's no stopping. I mean, I'm not going to ever stop. Even when I'm a fucking head in a jar, I want them to bring me to set, I'll talk. I'll go, okay, action, motherfuckers, and I'll just walk me around, and they can put me down as a centerpiece, and I can kind of enjoy everything other than the fact I'm just a head. So the truth is, last year things slowed down a bit because of COVID. HarperCollins wanted to do this book. They connected me to a literary agent. He put me in touch with a wonderful biographer because, I can tell stories, but I'm not really a writer. And we spent about 5 months of Saturday mornings he was really good at it because I never look back. I am so forward thinking. I barely remember half of this. But he sat me down and we went little by little through my history. And, out came this book at the end of the year.
You mentioned all the movies you have going on, and even through the pandemic, you did release a whole bunch that we reviewed.
Yeah.
What is that like? Like just having that schedule, cranking them out one a month or whatever, right?
Right. It's kind of the motivating factor is fear, right? You just can't fucking stop because then you grow old and everything's over. So it was hard. Yeah, we had to slow down a bit during COVID, but I invented this sort of a way to still make movies pretty much by phoning it in the sense that Corona Zombies, which we shot literally the day of the lockdown here in Hollywood, in LA.
Yes.
And then the two Barbie and Kendra shows, the formula was shoot one day, brave the wild and put on the fucking mask and shoot one day of these ditzy girls doing crazy stuff, but they discover these low rent cable channels. In the case of Corona Zombies, it's a low rent sort of horror channel. And they're looking at an old Italian zombie movie. And we did a What's Up Tiger Lily where we took away the soundtrack and put in, funny contemporary dialogue and music. And of course, to deliver on the title of Corona Zombies, we had to have a Corona zombie break in and all the rest of that silliness. So
of course,
it worked because it took, we did the whole thing in 30 days. I mean, it was one day shoot. But then we had to, get in touch with wonderful voice actors, the music. We had to piece it together, but all that was done from home, from people's homes, which people were a little nervous about. This is the beginning of the pandemic. People weren't even sure what they should be doing. That's why I have a scene in there where the ditzy girl takes a shower dressed, thinking that's going to help her a little bit, and of course a Corona zombie burst in, which was perfect. I made 3 of those shows, and the one that actually kind of did the best in terms of views was Barbie and Kendra Save the Tiger King, because Tiger King was happening. I mean, these are shows we could put together from concept to release in 4 or 5 weeks, really quick. So things that are topical, which is what an exploitation movie is all about, can be turned around sort of on a dime. So when the Tiger King thing was so successful, I wanted to go and get something going with the Tiger King. We had this idea of a Zoom call and the thing, and bummer is he was in the slammer, right? So couldn't do that. So we went to the other guy, the John Rinke, who's a really sweet guy, the guy without the legs. And we pulled him into the story, and it worked really well. And again, most of the movie was about the origin of the Tiger King. And we had this little kid in this 50-year-old movie. We cut it around. So he was sort of like baby Tiger King. And by good luck, he was holding a little stuffed tiger. And we put Leslie Jordan's super fun voice in this little kid saying crazy shit. So, we had fun during some difficult months.
I am not a big horror person, but one of my favorite movies, it's a horror movie, is Baby Oopsie, and you shot that
Right.
at Full Moon Manor. And so how did that come about? Because, you know, the feel of the movie really, it really is shown through the location and everything.
Okay, so obviously historically we made Demonic Toys, and we made two of those, and Doll Man, and then we did Doll Man versus the Demonic Toys all back, you know, in the 90s. So I always wanted to take one of the characters from Demonic Toys and kind of give that character its own movie. And Baby Oopsie seemed to be the best because it's a foul-mouthed little cussing little fucker, right?
Yes.
And so Baby Oopsie made sense. But when I got together with Billy Butler, who's the writer-director, we decided, let's do something really different. Let's just cast people you would never see as leads in a horror movie. So, you know, you would think, you know, young hot chick, GQ dude, they all get into trouble, boobs. I mean, I could go on and on. Boobs are flying, right? Because that's part of the formula, right?
Yes.
Can't forget what we were like when we were kids. We went to the video store, we got a horror movie. You kind of expect a moment with some topless chick is in trouble, right? You can't not do that just because maybe we're a little more mature. So anyway, we cast Libby and Justin, these wonderful actors. And I think that, along with the location, which I'll tell you about, made the movie really fun and different. I mean, yes, it's the same little cussing little Baby Oopsie doll, but I think the canvas was different than any movie we've ever made. Very different look. So what happened is I sort of stumbled on this location in Cleveland. That's a very long story, but the shortest version is I was there for different reasons, and somehow I was led to this huge, they called it a haunted house. I don't think it's very haunted, but it's a 110-year-old large 10,000 square foot house. And it was available at an amazing price. And I've always told myself over the years, if I had only bought one of these old messed up houses, 40 years ago, I could have saved a fortune, because out of every 10 movies, I make a movie that involves some old creepy house. And over the years, we had to rent the house, more and more expensive. We built these houses on sound stages. It's like, should have owned one of these things, because you can redress an interior location many different ways. Anyway, I found this place. It needed a lot of work. So we started, fixing it up. I decided, just for fun, to call it the Full Moon Manor, just because I figured we're going to shoot a bunch of movies here. And before you knew it, we were shooting Baby Oopsie there, completely on that location. And then we're going back and shooting more episodes of The Resonator, which is another show I did earlier this year. Okay. And then we're making 4 more chapters of Baby Oopsie, because we love Baby Oopsie and Libby, and
yes,
the whole tableau is going to be a lot of fun. We can go really far with it. So yeah, strangely enough, Cleveland's become sort of our new home away from home. I mean, in the 80s, it was the Empire Studios in Rome, Italy. In the 90s, it was the studio in Romania. And now, luckily, it's not across the globe, it's Cleveland. And Cleveland's an amazing city. People don't know it was the wealthiest city in America 110 years ago, the wealthiest city. Wow. So a lot of things exist there that are on both sides of the scale. I mean, huge mansions, somewhat dilapidated sometimes, to creepy, weird locations. It's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the college campuses, there's a big film community there. It's sort of got it all. So I shouldn't be talking so much about it, because it's kind of a secret, sort of. But yeah, we'll be shooting a lot there next year.
Right on.
Hey, I'm fine with the secrets. As long as I know more Baby Oopsie is on the way, I'm good. I that's one of my favorite horror movies. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, like, going through your career now, you've had many roles, director, all of that. But on top of all, you chose to be a producer.
Yeah.
Why tackle that whole thing? Just producing the, everything, all the logistics that go along with it.
Well, okay, so if it was the old days and this was an antique shop, it'd be my shop, and I'd have other people helping me carve weird ass antiques. I mean, it's still my shop. All these ideas are mine, the titles, the art, not literally the art, but the concept behind the art, since that's what we need to sell these movies, whether it was back in the poster days in the 70s, or the VHS days, or the DVD days. You need an intriguing piece of art coupled with the title to pull people in, because we didn't have big theatrical releases. We didn't have stars. So because I wanted to be really prolific, and there were years where we made 20 movies a year, even back, during the 35 millimeter days, which was a lot more heavy lifting than today with all the digital stuff. I mean, I couldn't physically direct all these movies, nor did I want to. So even though I dreamt them up and I worked with producer writers to get them kind of in a position where I felt they were ready to roll. So I mean, I worked with a lot of really wonderful directors, and I directed my fair share, and I'll keep doing that. But I just wasn't into the idea. I mean, I have friends who've gone on to become really well-known filmmakers, and I always kid around. Sometimes it takes them a year or two to get their next gig. They're waiting around for the agent, the manager, the big movie. But, it's just, I don't have that patience. So yes, I don't have the budget. Sometimes it's like, I wish I had more money to do something bigger, but our movies are character driven. I hope they're fun. They're usually, sort of different. They travel well. I never made any slasher movie. When all the trends happened, Friday the 13th, I never kind of copied any of that. So I got weird movies going back to the 70s. So look at a movie. By the way, dude, you should look at that movie. Look at Head of the Family if you like Baby Oopsie.
I have seen Head of the Family.
You've seen it?
Yes, I
come
have.
On, that's another insane movie. So
yes,
or Hideous, or any of these movies are sort of unique because they're not copycat movies. I mean, whether you like them or not, they're kind of fresh and different and twisted. So I forgot where I was going. I was just on a roll, but
no, that's fine. And you're getting into another foray, the Puppetmaster video game. What can you tell us about that? Because that's a different departure from, of course, like all the movies and the films.
Yeah, I have zero to tell you about this. These are very enthusiastic. I don't know. I'm not a video gamer. These people at October Games, they came to us. They're super passionate fans. I figured, let's do it. Let them go run with it. And I'm happy if it works out. And they're really nice people. But I do have a little sliver of a video history you guys probably would enjoy. So I started the first independent home video company in 1977. You guys were not around. You weren't even jizz. Okay, there was nothing there at all. Nothing. And it was called Meet a Home Entertainment. We had a catalog of movies like Groove Tube and Tunnel Vision. Later, Halloween, I Spit on Your Grave. All that stuff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But anyway, around 1980. Video games were happening, Pac-Man, Atari, and I thought, well, it's time for some horror video games. So because I knew all the players, I licensed the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween to make an Atari, type video game. And, it was like ridiculous games, like kind of Pac-Man, beep, 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 the little guy with, it was completely absurdly silly and simple. And we went to a big show at the time, which was I think it was the CES show, but whatever it was, big show in Chicago. The booth, the big announcement, did not sell one, okay? Not one, because the people buying video games at the time were like Sears, and people would come up to me and say, are you crazy? Video games are for children, give me something like Pac-Man or a cartoon. Nobody's going to want a horror video game with a guy with a knife. This is ridiculous. So basically go fuck yourself. And we couldn't sell shit. So I literally gave away those thousands of games, which now apparently are $300, $500, $600 on eBay. They're back because we only made two. So there's a bummer to be way ahead of the game too. 20 years. And now, of course, anyway, that's my little foray into the video game business 40 years ago.
Okay.
Thanks. Cool.
So we live in this era of Hollywood remakes. We've seen Candyman recent. I know there's a Toxic Avenger coming out. Would you be open to that with one of the classic Full Moons?
I'm not a big remake. If a movie's terrific in the beginning, it's really hard to make it better. Don't try to remake a part 2 of The Shining. Don't do that. It's absurd. Now, having said that, all the movies I'm known for dating back to the 70s, they were made on tiny budgets, and a reboot, well made, capturing the spirit of those movies, but getting that film out to, a much bigger audience, a mainstream audience would be great. And there are several deals right now pending, none of which I can talk about because none of them are real yet. They're like development deals where I feel that if in time we are involved with the remake of any of the 15 or 20 movies that people are pretty familiar with, and it is released, $100 million budget movie, and it goes out in theaters and has, the big mainstream deal happening, that's going to pull all the Full Moon universe, all the movies I built over these 40 odd years sort of into mainstream. So, this sort of Full Moon universe of all these characters and very potential crossover, franchises could be great fodder for, that kind of deal in the future. I think that's going to happen. And it just takes one, because a lot of people know these movies. They grew up with them mainly because of the video store. That's how they discovered these shows. Their parents would be convinced to, hey, Puppetmaster's a little puppet movie, Mom. And then they came home and Leech Woman would spew leeches. And, these are great memories for a lot of characters. If that begins to happen, and I kind of feel it will, that's going to sort of change it. So I'm into that. But, to remake really classic, amazing horror movies, you rarely see it done better than the original, in my opinion.
I can't think of any. Maybe Hills Have Eyes, maybe, and that's
that's a good example. That was really well made. I enjoyed that. But how do you remake these movies? Some of them are so good. And the other problem is a lot of these 80s movies were really gritty. The people cast were not pretty looking humans. They were kind of, you believe them more, and then you kind of gloss it up and it loses its appeal, I think.
That's kind of what happened with Ghostbusters, because I feel like they were trying to say something with that movie and people were just like, yeah, we just want,
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I mean, come on. I mean, I like I say, I don't put my left toe into anything political. There's no point, because let's just enjoy our lives and, be good human beings. But that's not what Ghostbusters. Now they're doing it with kids, sort of like, we'll see how that works.
It doesn't have the vibe already. If just from the trailers, it's a big Marvel movie, it looks like, with all the effects. It's like, that's not what the original was.
No, and the problem with all that is, if you go back to what I think we all fell in love with great horror or sci-fi movies, the older ones, there was a sprinkling of fantasy, a little bit of effects. They were magical, and then you cared about the people. They were character-driven movies. Yes. Now you just long for one scene with two humans, in the middle of all the, how many times can we see New York get destroyed and shit blowing up and lasers? It's like, oh my God, it's so seen too much of that. And it's a pity, because that wasn't the formula of all the classic sci-fi, fantasy, and horror movies we grew up with. It's flipped now, and it's really too bad.
What do you say to like filmmakers who are trying to be directors, producers, and anything? What do you try to tell them about, getting their art out or just getting into the business?
Well, this should not sound self-serving, but buy my fucking book, okay? Just buy the book and get a sense of the trajectory of someone who started with nothing. I mean, I did grow up on a movie set. My dad made movies. He had a great stretch, but by the time I was 20 and my brother was 18, he had no money. He had to borrow money to come back to the States, because I grew up in Italy. You just roll with the punches. If you really love what you're doing, and if you're passionate, you got to know there can be some ups, there can be really terrible downs. I mean, if you read the book, you'll see. I didn't want to write a book that talked about a little bit about every movie and the technical stuff and the directors I was involved with and the producers. I wanted this book to be about an entrepreneur, me, and what you have to go through sometimes to stay alive, and it's not easy, but it's easy if you believe in, if you love what you're doing. It's really hard to do this if you're not even into it. Now, a lot of people got into this business because they thought they'd make money, and all those people are gone. The idea of mixing the arts with business is really tricky. How do you create something and survive and make some dough to, have a life? But sort of the core deal is just keep on trucking. You got to get up every morning, even during difficult times, and go, I'm going to make this happen. Somehow I'm going to survive.
Well, I guess with that's a perfect answer to end on right there. We definitely urge everyone to check out Confessions of a Puppetmaster, a Hollywood memoir of ghouls, guts, and gonzo filmmaking, which is available November 16th.
Yeah, they can pre-buy it now. It's all good. But I think you'll enjoy the book. And you guys are awesome. I'm telling you, give me something laced with humor, and I just start off already laughing. Tell me the exact name of the Turd Podcast. What is it called, the whole thing?
Perfect Turd Podcast.
Perfect Turd. Well,
yes.
I mean, there's no better name. You cannot think of a better name. There's nothing like a name that sums it up. That's why I always try to come up with titles. You don't even need a log line. Like our second most successful series after Puppetmaster is Evil Bong. Evil fucking Bong. You need to even hear a log line?
You know what you're in for. And you have an audience already. So there you go. Yeah.
Evil Bong. Anyway, thanks, guys. And thanks for always watching the movies. And lots of crazy baby Oopsie coming up.
Oh, boy. Lamar is so excited.
Baby dolls killing people. I'm all for it. I never thought I would feel so happy about this, but I am. Yes.
All right.
Right on. Thank you, Charles.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Well, Lamar, I hope you liked that episode. You should probably go like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, pal.
Okay.